she she told me my father wasn't doing very good. My father had been diagnosed with colon cancer, and they hadn't told me. They just said he had a little procedure done. They hadn't told me that he had cancer. But my mom called and she's like, "Son, we didn't want to worry you, but the operation your father had was colon cancer, and he's been doing chemo, and everything looked great, but he's not doing so hot. So you may want to think about." You may want to think about coming home. So I went home and saw him, and he hadn't been out of the bed in weeks. He got up and met me at the door. Because he didn't want me to worry. And so, after staying a week or so, I went back to Florida and told my supervisors at Walt Disney World everything, the situation, and they're like, "Go take care of your business. You'll have a job here if you ever want it." And so I moved home. I'm sorry, may I have a tissue or a napkin or something? Thank you. So, months after I moved home, my father passed away. And that was a very, very difficult time in my life. My mother and my brothers and all my brothers moved back home to be with my mother. We had to move from the Cathedral Domain because we lived on the property. My father managed the camp, and they provided us with a home to live in. So once my father passed away, we had to move away. So we moved my mother actually to Richmond, and we all stuck together and supported one another. And I got a job in Versailles at Haslock Office Supply, delivering office furniture. I'd drive up to Maysville, I'd drive to Berea, I'd drive to Richmond, and I'd deliver here in Lexington. And it was a good job, and it was good to be around my family again. But there was something inside me that felt like it was calling me back to Orlando. I don't know, my gut, my instincts, my inner voice, my desire, something I felt like was calling me back to Orlando. So about a year after my father's death, I felt like that I was, mentally strong enough to be out on my own, and I felt like my mom was in good hands with my brothers, and so I moved back to Orlando to pursue my goal, my dream, to make a living as an entertainer. And that's when I met the woman that would be my wife. One day as well. So following my heart, and that's something that I want to make a point of as well. Following your own heart and trusting your own intuition when you're faced with decisions, and you're faced with difficulty. Because I think that voice that we hear, our conscience, some people call it a conscience, some people call it your gut, some people call it just plain old common sense, but I think that God gave us that. And if we can listen to it and follow it, it'll keep us on the right path. Sometimes it's hard to hear that voice because pride gets in the way, or greed, or selfishness, or whatever. But that voice brought me back down to Orlando, and I got my job back at Disney. And I was working there, still doing characters, full time though. I changed from the Backstage Studio Tour into characters. And then an audition came up for singers, finally, at Disney. And I went and auditioned, and the guy, his name was Ronnie Rodriguez. He said, you know, your voice is too contemporary. It's too pop. Doesn't sound, we need a voice that sounds like Broadway. So I'm sorry, but no thank you. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I kept working in characters, and I finally got a job. Also, in the nighttime, there was an audition that came up for a dinner theater that was opening. It's where you sit down and have dinner, and people are up, and we're giving you a play. And so I actually got that job. So I was working at Disney in the morning and at the dinner theater at night, and I loved that job. And between the two, man, I thought I was rich. I thought I was bringing in the dough. And I was just having an amazing time. And like I said, at Walt Disney World in 1992, in the cafeteria is where I met Kristen, who is now my wife. That was, what, 16, 17 years ago? Well, she was a dancer at the Beauty and the Beast show, and I was a Ninja Turtle. And